It was supposed to be a lovely evening with soft lighting and flickering candles. "I don't love you anymore," he said, leaning in instead, his words cutting sharper than any blade. In that instant, everything collapsed. Anniversaries are supposed to represent the strength of love's enduring power proof that two people have continuously chosen each other despite all the ups and downs. These are evenings of hearts entwined, futures envisioned, and promises recalled. That night was just that for her. Her smile concealed the weariness of organizing a day to honor not only the years past, but also the dreams yet to come. The restaurant had been picked with care, and the dress she wore evoked memories of their first date. However, life cruelly reminds us that not everyone's heart beats in the same way. Occasionally, as one clings more firmly, the other quietly disappears, leaving behind nothing but a shadow of what was. She leaned forward, anticipating warmth that evening as glasses clinked around them and the sounds of laughter from other tables filled the air. Rather, she sensed cold. He didn't make a fuss or raise his voice. "I don't love you anymore," he whispered softly, almost kindly. But with every word came the threat of ruin. The room blurred, her chest tightened, and her smile froze. A hollow echo replaced the sound of 1,000 conversations. She questioned whether she had misheard or if it was a mean joke. But she could tell by the expression in his eyes that he meant it. This is more than just a tale of love lost. It's also about the destruction of a meticulously constructed world, the anguish of treachery, and the lingering question of how one copes with the abrupt loss of the air that sustains oneself. There had been hope at the start of that night. She recalled entering the restaurant, the smell of roses blending with candle wax, and her heels clicking on the shiny floor. For a brief moment, she thought everything was still as it should be, because he had held her chair and smiled courteously. However, for months, cracks had been growing beneath the surface. Smaller conversations, missed calls, and an unexplained distance were all subtle changes. He attributed it to work, stress, and fatigue. Because it was easier to believe than to confront, she trusted him. She realized the warning signs had been there all along when she heard those 6 words, "I don't love you anymore." Her voice was barely audible as it trembled. "What do you mean?" He didn't appear repentant or angry, just finished. "It is no longer there. Whatever we had is no longer there." Her fork clattered against the plate as it fell out of her hand. The next table's patrons looked over. Her hands trembled beneath the tablecloth, but she forced a smile, acting as though nothing was amiss. The silence between them became intolerable. Desperate to find any hint of hesitation, she looked for it in his face, but all she saw was finality. She was overcome with memories of their first apartment, the whispered dreams, the promises to grow old together, and the laughter. Were they all falsehoods? Or was there a real expiration date on love? Her voice broke as she questioned, "Why now?" His words were still harsh, but his eyes briefly softened. "Because I was unable to maintain my pretense." "Not tonight." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. She refused to let strangers witness her breakdown. But her world was already falling apart inside. There was silence on the drive home. The glow from the streetlights blended with the tears she resisted, fearing that her heart might scream louder than her voice could ever do if she looked at him. She turned her face toward the window. Anger, grief, and denial all fought for room inside her chest. She mentally relived the evening, remembering every forced smile and every moment she believed had significance. The walls themselves appeared strange when they first entered their apartment. The pictures on the wall made fun of her. Mornings when they laughed while drinking coffee, birthdays when he kissed her forehead, and trips where they held hands. How much time? Not daring to look at him, she whispered. "A while," he replied plainly. Her knees went weak. She steadied herself by holding on to the couch's edge. "So all of the recent hugs and kisses were just pretend?" He let out a breath. "I didn't intend to cause you any harm." Her laugh was bitter and sharp. "Yet here we are." His eyes faltered for the first time. Perhaps guilt had discovered a weakness in his defenses. However, love was not guilt, and what was already ruined couldn't be saved by guilt. Like a ghost, she moved through the apartment, stroking books, frames, and the sweater he had left on the chair. Everything shouted of a life lived together, now without purpose. Her heart pleaded with her to fight, to remind him of their vows, to ask him to stay. However, her pride also hinted at the fact that love was no longer love if it had to be begged for. She lay awake in silence that night. The man next to her was no longer her partner. Instead, he was a complete stranger who had stolen her future with just one word. As the clock struck midnight, she came to the realization that this anniversary would live on in her memory forever, not as a celebration, but as the end of her world. The harsh, inhospitable morning light filtered through the blinds. As if he hadn't exploded her heart the previous evening, she turned to face him while she slept soundly. A peculiar serenity descended upon her. Perhaps it was clarity, or perhaps it was shock. Silently, she got up and took one final stroll around the apartment. Memories that now pierced deeper than glass echoed with every step. She stopped at the door. Leaving meant more than simply walking away. It meant making the decision to choose herself, even when it seemed impossible. She touched the doorknob with her fingers. "I'll survive this," she whispered to herself as a tear trickled down her cheek. The door gently closed behind her as she stepped outside. Everyone experiences heartbreak. Not only did a relationship end that night, but trust was also broken, dreams were dashed, and a new beginning was painfully born. It seems as though life has stopped when someone whispers something so painful. The fact is, however, that life never ends. You understand the weight of nights like this if you've ever had your entire world upended. You are aware of the ensuing quiet and the void where love once resided, and you are aware of the gradual, brittle strength that develops unexpectedly. This is a story about resiliency, not just suffering. It's about having the guts to stay upright when your entire being wants to give out. It's about realizing that sometimes the end is an opportunity to rediscover who you are and what you deserve, rather than a sign of failure. To everyone observing, you are not alone. If you have experienced something similar, your narrative is important. Your recovery is important. Furthermore, there is more light in your future than you may realize, even though it may seem uncertain at the moment. I therefore ask that you share this story if it resonated with you, or if it brought back memories of your own journey. Tell someone who might need to hear that they are not irreparably damaged. Give it to someone who might benefit from being reminded that they are more resilient than they may realize. Additionally, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join this community if you want to hear more stories like this one, real, raw, and unfiltered, because we heal together through stories.